What is a day in our garden like? What is a day in your garden like? How do you get through those grueling days in your garden, and what do you love most about it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. Well, what's your day like?
It's glorious.
Is it?
I wish I could truthfully say that about every day in the garden. It depends on the season, like the part of the season, and that dictates what my day is like. Today was a very good day in the garden.
Every day's a good day for me.
Yeah.
I never have a bad day.
Good
I never
on
have a
you.
bad day in general.
Oh, well, good on you. Well, let's talk about my bad days.
No, therapy is closed for the day, so we are done with that.
This is true. I would say, while not a bad day because I get to be outside, the challenging days are always those days that whatever the garden chore or project is takes a little bit longer than I anticipated. So.
Oh, they all take longer than I anticipate. All of them. And I'm sure everybody listening can confirm that with me.
That all of your garden projects take longer than you anticipate?
No, just in general, like, you know how you're like, oh, I'm going to go out and weed for like 15 minutes and it's like an hour later.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, my wife is like, are you coming inside? Like, yeah, I'm coming in. Just give me a second.
Yeah,
That's like my biggest thing in the garden is right now is weeding.
Still?
Oh, well, remember I said I have my regular garden, and just for clarification's sake, I said I did a garden tour, and I said I have a 32 square foot garden. Well, it's 32 times 4.
Yeah.
And that one particular space. And then the next one is, I think it's like 8 by 8 times 2, which would be 64. But that one last year had weeds that were like over my head tall. So this year it's not as bad because I just pulled it out of the woods. But it's not as bad this year. So
Okay. But
now
I mean,
we're just kind of.
I thought you guys, did the whole mulching thing to try to combat that.
But we still have small issues, but nowhere near as bad.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as bad. So the places where we're having issues, there's no mulch. Shocker. So
yeah, for me, so my days, depending on the part of the season, could be split with prepping, kind of recovering from the winter, so that's obviously in the early part of the season. And those are still good days because it's nice to be out in the fresh air, versus being cooped up in the house over the course of the colder months. Then we transition into like getting ready for go time, and planting. And that brings me joy too. So that's a good day in the garden. And at that point, that's basically all I'm doing for that period of time, whether it's prepping, topping off beds, cleaning stuff out in the earlier part, or planting. Like I could spend my garden day planting. Or like now where there's more maintenance. So this is like kind of checking on everything. And this is my second favorite part of the garden season. So these days are my second favorite. My first favorite is kind of looking at that clean slate. Like that's my very favorite. When I look at the garden, it's kind of like what it could be. But now, a day for me.
that's my least favorite.
Is it?
Yeah.
I can imagine it's bare. There's really not a whole lot to look at. But it's just the possibilities that are in the air that brings me joy.
My favorite's whenever I go pick my food out of it.
Well, yeah, I can imagine that too. But now this is a nice time because my garden walks and my kind of garden chores, I'm able to kind of check the progress of everything. So for me, when June and July, there's basically watching everything because there's not a whole lot to harvest in June or July for me. So this is the patience game, right? There's a lot of waiting, there's a lot of trying to make sure that there isn't anything going astray. And if there is, for me to jump in there. So.
Yeah. I mean, well, so this is, we talked very briefly about this, and it's a difficult subject because it's like, well, what the hell is a day in the garden like? Because I mean, you're not an actual legit farmer where you wake up at 6 a.m. and you're in there until sun up, and Mama Dukes comes out and rings the triangle, grub, and then you run in, you eat your lunch, and then you go back out and you work. So. It's not really a day in the garden per se, but it is definitely the times in the garden. And my most enjoyable times, in all seriousness, is when I go out in the morning and do my garden walks. Those are, just checking on stuff and whatnot, because that's when I'm really noticing my progress in my garden. So for you... And I'm interested to know too, for all the listeners, how many times a day do you go out in your garden? So you're welcome to answer that, but for the listeners, I would love to hear how much they actually get out in their garden. So what is it for you?
Yeah, and so specifically, if you're out in the garden for an hour straight, that's one time. If you go out 3 hours later, that's your second time. So that's what you're interested in, which I'd be curious about too, because I generally go out twice a day. Once I get to the point of harvesting, it may be a third time. So it's the first thing in the morning for the garden walk, my garden chores. I'm doing watering if I need to water, tying up veggies, inspecting things, admiring things. So that's the morning. Before that's the first thing that I do, get showered up and put my garden clothes on or not. That's a whole different conversation. Grab some coffee, get outside, and by then I want to. What,
you don't go? You go out in your garden with no clothes on?
No. Okay, 3 times a day, because there is one time no. It's so hot now, you're gonna come back in soaked, and sticky by the time you get done. So the question is to shower or not shower before. But anyway, grab a cup of coffee. That's the first thing that I do. So that's always in the morning. And I try to go out again before it gets dark. And I kind of have to go out an hour before it gets dark. So even when it starts to, the sun starts to settle down, my eyes aren't so good. So I'm out there, things are looking a little bit blurry. So I go out again around 7 or 7:30 in the evening just to take a look at things one more time before I wrap up. And it's cooler for me at that part of the day. Now, when it's harvest time, when I'm actually getting, a plethora of harvest, I may go out for lunch, and grab whatever I'm going to have. So that may be the third time, or I guess an additional time. How about you?
So I go out in the mornings. And all my stuff is automatic for watering for the most part. But I go out in the mornings and I check it. I check the status of each and every plant. Generally speaking, I have, right now my eggplants are giving me troubles. So I have baby grasshoppers that are eating them up. So I'm going out there and I'm doing a morning check. A little bit of squishy, squish. And getting rid of those bad boys. And then, just kind of, and it's a good time for me because I'm able to keep track of the progress. You know what I mean? So it's okay, I was doing bad today. Oh, I see new growth. Cool. So I always go back out in the afternoon because I do my harvesting in the evening.
Okay.
That's my favorite time is in the evening because it's not dewy. And because a lot of things, it's like my bush beans and stuff, they're real low to the ground and I got a bad back. So I'll sit down and harvest them. So I can sit down and not get soaking wet and stuff like that. And it's cooler. People are just generally out more. You can hear the sounds of everything. Now in the morning, I hear the sounds of nature more, so that's better. But that's when I harvest. And then in the middle of the day, sometimes I go out. Like right now, I go out because I have, at the time of this recording, that is, I go out because I have small seedlings now that are out, my winter squash and my cucumbers, and they don't have really big roots. So a lot of times they'll get kind of wilty a little faster. So I need to go out and check on them. But in the middle of the day, I try not to go out there too terribly much. And then like I said, all my harvesting's in the afternoon, stuff like that. But my morning walks are fairly quick. And I mean, but I get a lot done in those morning walks, you know.
Mine isn't quick at all. So I'm trying to retrain myself to just do the walk and then come back. But I'm like a kid in a candy store. Like I get distracted. I generally start in the backyard. And again, this is only year 2. So the front yard garden. So I start in the backyard and I can pretty much get through that, take a quick look, make a mental note. And I want to get to the front yard, before all the traffic out there really picks up. And I kind of get lost in the front yard. Like, I think it's still that honeymoon stage, for me. Like, I'm still enamored by, all that's going on there. So I spend quite a bit of time. And there are a lot of things I'm growing for the first time up there, too. So, I'm checking on all of my melon plants and, just looking at how cool and quickly they're growing from that night to that morning and all the tentacles.
That's a garden design issue. That's a garden design issue.
I'm certain I don't have issues.
You heard it
my
here.
Garden or its design.
No, so like my front yard. No, I joke, but my front yard, for instance, I put a lot of my front yard is mostly flowers, a little bit of food, not much, but everything I put up there is drought tolerant. So I don't have to worry about watering it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have to worry about feeding it much. I don't have to worry about insects all that much. It's just basically, to me, and I definitely get out there, and I think you're going to kill me when you hear this, but I generally walk that section of my garden probably 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week.
I'm not surprised because we don't talk about that section often, and so I kind of assume that,
It's new. It's very new, and I have issues there.
Okay.
So, and I know what the issues are, and I just need to fix them. So it's like this year, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever, There's more up there than last year, so it's better. Yeah. But it needs a little bit more, it needs a little bit.
Our gardens right now are still in 2 different stages, so my morning walk does require a bit more, maintenance than yours probably does at this stage. I know that you're picking up on some of your fall plantings now.
How you know that? You ain't in my garden. You don't know.
The satellites told me. It's told me it all. But I wanted to go back. I don't look at every single plant. Like, I don't inspect every single plant. I do right now because of how many I'm growing, I think. Maybe before I did. But I do kind of, there's certain plants that I look at very closely, and those are the ones I'm more concerned with. And then there are others that I kind of do a drive-by. Like, I have a row of peppers, basically. And so I kind of look at them all, kind of just cursory glance at them. I'm not... I'm lifting a few of them up, which is really what I should be doing, like moving them around, because that's how you get in trouble. You look up later and it's a big hole out of something. But these are just in the early stages. I'm seeing pepper buds and things of that nature, again, at the time of this recording. But I spend my time, kind of looking and checking out things that are either getting close to harvest, because I have some things like, zucchini, and there's some cucumbers that are coming in, or things that it's like, oh, that's what that looks like when it grows. So again, some of these things I've not grown. I'm doing cucamelons. I don't know if we talked about that, which I'm super excited about. I'm just like, this is not anything like a cucumber as far as how it vines.
Yeah, I don't touch every single plant, but I definitely look at them, and then when I just see a problem, that's when I start every day. I put my hands on that plant and I check it. So it's like yesterday, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Day before, whatever. I went out and I had just planted some green beans a couple weeks ago, and they're starting to really come up and grow up the trellis. And they are behind my tomatoes. So I noticed, and I've never grown Better Boy tomatoes before. You know, my wife was like, "Oh, I want to get a slicer." And I was like, "Okay, well, we'll get you a slicer." And this was, you know, of course, she tells me when it starts to get warm, so I can't start seeds. Yeah. So I was like, all right, so we got some Better Boys and we put them in, and they're just taking over. But we did twice as many tomatoes this year as we did last year, so I didn't have enough tomato cages.
Oh, yeah,
So I used bamboo stakes, which, by the way, I'll never do that again. Never do it again. But when they come up, they're just taking over. So I had to go out there and like restake and tie up and move away from the green beans and kind of separate them and trim them and all that stuff. So, you know, all that stuff kind of happened, but I saw it happen in the morning and I said, this afternoon, this is when I'm going to come out and do it, because plus the bugs are really bad here in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So it can be kind of painful.
Yeah.
But, you know, so it's just kind of like a good time for me to check and move. But I'm not one of those people that stay out in my garden all the time.
Yeah, I am.
You know? Well, and I don't think that's a good thing to be out in your garden all the time.
No, I do. For me. It brings me joy, yeah.
Well, my thing is if I'm ever out there, I feel like some things might not happen like they should. Like maybe you won't get as many pollinators because you're bothering them or something like that. So I mean, it does create an itty bitty bit of like, I feel like I'm behind schedule, you know, and there's a little bit of that where it's like, it needs to be a little bit more lax, you know, because I'm really trying to mostly beat the heat in the morning. And the reality is it's a lost cause. Like between 6 and 8, it's about the same bit of hot. Yeah. So, you know, I'll get up at 5:15 and it's like, how am I just getting out of the house, meaning out of the back door at 6:30? How did that happen? You know, and I feel like, oh, I could have gotten so much more done. And you know, that's being a little bit neurotic about the garden, but I have those ways sometimes. But no, for me, it's, I think the, you know, trying to, I won't say maintain, but trying to nudge my veggies in the right direction, because I'm doing a lot of vertical gardening. And so with that, there's a bit of training is the word I was looking for that you have to do. And so a lot of my work in the morning or sometimes in the evening when I go out is, you know, pulling a tomato stem or a cucumber stem or a melon vine, you know, into a particular way. Because if you don't keep track of that stuff, you'll quickly lose that battle. So I do vertical gardening too.
Oh, but you still don't baby?
So yeah, I'm doing my winter squash vertical.
Oh, okay.
Vertical-ish.
Yeah.
So I let it go up and then I let it go down.
Okay. Well, you know what? You're a little bit ahead of me, so I'll take some pointers because I'm doing spaghetti squash and butternut squash. Just like a plant.
Yeah, I do a lot of butternut.
Yeah, just a plant.
I do a lot of butternuts.
A plant.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 8 butternut squash plants.
And I have it in one space. It's like actually not even in a raised bed. It's off one of the raised beds. I just have some bricks, you know, kind of separating it. And I put tomato cages around it with the intention of like, this is how I'm going to corral it, you know, to grow vertically. But I'm going to be honest, I kind of already know that, you know, I'm going to let it do its thing. It's like 2 by 4.
No, don't do that. Let it get it to go up. So what I do is I spiral it around. You know, I'll weave it and tuck it and then move it up, weave it and tuck it. And then when it gets to the top, if it still wants to grow, then I let it grow down.
Okay.
And then you've already saved, you know, 4 or 5 feet of vine.
So I've never grown either of those. They don't grow like zucchini plants.
Well, zucchini plants are vines.
Okay.
So they're just more compact.
Yeah. So what's a butternut squash plant like then?
A vine.
Okay. You just said they're both the same thing.
Yeah, but it's more of an actual vine.
Okay.
So zucchini plants they're considered a vine, but they're not actually a vine.
Yeah, they're more. Yeah, they're more in that cluster of a plant, if you will. Yeah. I gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, the
butternut squash.
Okay. it is an actual vine, and it will get big, big round. And the volunteer I have now, I want to say it's about 10 feet long and 8 feet wide, maybe 6 feet wide. So if that gives you any kind of idea about how big it can get.
I mean, it's a good space where if I need to put some other trellising system there, I could, the space that it's in. So it's along a fence even. So we see, it's the first time I'm growing it. And, it's just, again, my attempt to get another veggie that I can store. Easily store.
That's why I have 8 plants. So I can have them, more and more and more. And because they go all winter.
Yeah.
But if you go to the grocery store, they're crazy expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, one of the things I don't buy often because of that in particular. So I'm looking forward to growing them.
But now you'll eat it more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're great. They're good grilled.
I've had
doggy.
I don't know if I've ever put them on the grill. Oh. Sounds like a recipe of the day.
So,
anyway.
Not for me, it's not, because I'm fruit only, baby.
All fruit all the time. So that's...
But no, it's interesting to watch it, to go out there in the mornings and then even see the changes in the afternoon,
See, that's what I look at. So there's a part of me, I think, that goes out in the evening to kind of take a mental note. And then in the morning, I do observe changes. I'm growing tomatillos this year. And you talk about something that just like wild hogs, man. Like it is, I have it set up where it's doing pretty well. But this thing grows, I feel like, an inch an hour or something, So, I've not done a good job at, capturing the moments. We had talked about that being a priority, doing a lot of photos. I've just started taking some photos today to say, okay, let me see how this is going. Because in my mind, I'm cataloging it all in my mind. Like, wow, I remember what that plant looks like. I have a picture of that plant when I was hardening it off and look at it now. But I had to tell myself, just as a side note, like your tomato plants have only been in the ground for 2 months, easy. This is where they're supposed to be.
Take it easy, killer.
Yeah. Relax.
What the hell is wrong with you?
But so that next morning, the walk is supposed to be in part to observe the difference in my plants from the day before. And that's super duper quick, easy, right? It's just a glance. I get caught up with wanting to dive into the work. Right. So for me, especially because I've incorporated a bunch of containers, there is something to do each morning just based on the watering alone.
Yeah. Well, other than the containers, what the hell are you doing in your garden that you got to work so damn hard?
I didn't say I was working hard. I just say I'd like to spend.
You don't consider it hard, but you I got to do the work.
Yeah. Oh,
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. So right now I've been picking Japanese beetles. Inspecting for those. And they're spreading. Although the trap that you recommended, man, suckers, man, they're falling for it hook, line, and sinker. So wait, for Japanese beetles, what are you doing for them? Originally, I was hand picking them and
which is an awesome way to start. Yeah,
and putting them into a bowl or a bucket of water. Because I didn't want to be squishing them. So, I guess, I think you can figure out if I put it in a bucket of water, what's going to happen. I don't want to go there again in this episode. And then I started my round of neem oil, which I've never used before because they were primarily on my flowers. And so, although I know that, many people use it on their veggies too. And so I started that maybe a handful of days ago. And then you recommended this Japanese beetle trap. Which I got and set up, and I can already see them swarming. And I was concerned. I was poking around because I didn't want any other bugs to kind of go in there and get trapped. And that's not, it's the scent of the Japanese beetle.
So I like squishing them.
Yeah, well.
And double much, I like squishing them when they're humping. That's what I like. I'm like, you know what? You go ahead and get it on because you picked the wrong time,
I prefer to not disturb that groove. But you know what's crazy?
You say that.
Yeah.
And then you got 100
more. What I was going to say was I felt like, damn, there are a lot of them. I'm picking, I'll get 10 in a day or something, like when I was hand picking them. Maybe not 10, maybe 6 or 7. And so I had the trap out, and I saw another person report on this when they did a review of it. It's like, look at all of these after 15 minutes. And I was like, this trap is the business, because I didn't realize how many were in my garden area. Because I noticed that they were in different places. They were in some flowers in the backyard. I started to see them there. They were starting to show up on my okra plants. There were a couple on the tomatillo. So they were making their way around the garden, you know. Clearly there was some multiplying going on. So I think I got on top of it just in time, if you will. That's my hope, at least. But anyway.
I'm not on top of it, but I got to get a trap too. Mine got ruined last year. But and the trap you can get at like Lowe's, Home Depot, anything like that.
For me, I think it was like $6 or something.
It's pretty shabby, but it works.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a high class trap, if you know what I'm saying.
No high guard design here. Yeah.
No, but they are working their way around my, like last year they decimated my green beans, and I went out there today and I was like, son of a bitch, you ate a whole leaf.
Yeah.
So, but once I got the trap, that was it, and I was picking, I bet no less than 50 to 75 Japanese beetles a day.
That's crazy, yeah.
Off of them, yeah.
So grab the coffee, do the walk, come back around, grab my water can. I change out the water in my bird bath. While I have the motion, the kind of the little contraption that makes the water move so it's not still water, I still like to have fresh water for all of the creatures. Although by midday, that water is scalding, man. I don't think anyone's coming near it. So I move out the water. If there's something that I've planted like just recently, I'll make sure that I sprinkle that a little bit more. I have a couple of small containers in my flower bed, and they need to be watered like almost every day. And we're talking about like a minute or something. But I am kind of looking at all of the plants in this case this year, because I've not had this problem with anything eating at the flower bed before. So I'm paying a little bit more attention to that. I come back into the yard because the flower bed is on the outside of the yard. I come back into the yard and then I start checking on my flowers. So the containers I'm growing veggies in aren't so much the time suck. It's the containers I'm growing flowers in, so yeah.
I don't even want to talk about it.
So I'm deadheading, petunias. It's our favorite, but it takes some work.
You don't have to deadhead petunias.
Yeah, if you don't, they start to... this petunia brand that I have, variety that I have, if you don't...
Which is?
I don't remember. I'll have to tell you later. It's not the wave petunia.
Don't tell me later.
I don't remember now. It's not the wave petunia, though. I think those are the ones you don't have to deadhead.
Oh.
So the ones I have, the smaller head face of the petunia, and you absolutely have to deadhead those. And then the other ones, I could let the leaf fall off, but I'm deadheading it because I don't like the leaves to just look shriveled up until they fall off.
I do that too. Yeah. I kind of just stand there and pick a couple off.
So, so those baskets, and that's kind of just a note for when you're buying things. I like the look of them, but there are a couple of baskets that I won't buy again just because they just... it's too much maintenance for it. Like every day, I should be able to skip a day basically and not worry about half of the plants. The flowers are dead. So anyway, I check those out, and then that's when I'm coming around, like really kind of digging into the plants for the, the front yard and the vegetables. So I mean, to be quite frank, I could spend 30 minutes out there easily. And that's just the front yard. And so the backyard is easier though, because right now when you look at like all the tomatoes, I'm just doing a real glance to see what needs to be tied up. Are there any leaves drooping? Do I need to cut any leaves, prune it a little bit? So that's the easiest thing for me to care for right now. Yeah. That's it. That's all.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. But I mean, I have more flowers in the back in containers too. So there's that.
Well, I think that, the big thing about this is people think that gardening is just this crazy time-consuming thing. And in reality, for me, it's not really that time-consuming, Like, I don't have to go out 2 times a day.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
You can do it all in one and just make it longer. But I personally enjoy going out there in the mornings. Yeah. It's kind of like my routine. I get my dog and say, hey, let's go. And she'll well, she doesn't like to get her feet wet because she's a priss. So she'd come out and walk with me, and if she does, and then we'll just kind of glance, maybe I'll pick a little something maybe, but otherwise, yeah, it's just real easy going. Somebody trying to break in your house?
No, it's the mail lady. Normally she just rings the doorbell once, but she's been my mail lady since I've been here, so I'm thinking I offer her water all the time, and I'm thinking maybe she wanted a bottle of water or something. I mean, it's
so now you're going to dehydrate your mail
yeah,
lady.
right. It's getting hot out there. She rang the doorbell twice, so now I'm like, yeah.
She's like, give me some water.
If I'd have left it on the porch, it'd have been baking by now.
Yeah. But I mean, the garden walks are very important. And then just spending a day. So it's like on the weekends, do you spend all day in your garden?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, and I mean, in the spring, I was spending hours and hours and hours because, again, I'm prepping the land, if you will. But now, no. I mean, if I wasn't filming anything, my time would be a lot more minimal, because I have to separately spend some time with, okay, this is what I'm going to film, like for videos or whatever. But the weekends, I'm going to say the morning routine is about the same, because I basically switch out one chore for another, so some of the monitoring that I'm going to be doing is going to be swapped out with harvesting things in a while. You know what I'm saying? Because things will be, as my grandmother would say, like, letting the garden run wild, right? So I'm not worried about pinning things up so much, because they're going to already have been, latched on to that trellis. So yeah, but I mean,
well, so then that's one of my other garden that's multiple beds. The big ones in the woods, that's where the wild things grow. Oh. So I just let it run wild, basically. Yeah. I'm like, whatever.
Wait, what are you growing out there? Do we talk about this?
Yeah, we've talked about it 100 times, but I'll say it again. Sweet potatoes, green beans.
Oh, okay. The way you said it, like in the...
watermelons.
Yeah, the way you describe
strawberries.
it. Okay, yeah. I've heard this all before.
I just don't really use that much effort and maintaining that one because the whole idea of that was like set it and forget it. You know what I mean? And I mean, not forget it, but it's just a lot less maintenance.
Yeah.
So now once my okra comes up back there, then I'm going to be back there every day.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I love okra. I love growing okra. But yeah, and that's exactly a great example. I'm going to swap out something when I have to harvest. Luckily, you can harvest okra really quickly. But you're going to be harvesting a lot of it, in the evening and the morning.
Or not all day, but every day.
Yeah. And sometimes 2 times a day, depending on, how many plants you have. If I can commit to one thing, it's going to be to grow less okra next year.
How many plants do you have this year?
Oh, I know you're going to ask that. I think it somehow ended up being 12.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. I did 11 last year, and I did mean to do 12 this year, but you know what happened? I did, the whole, the start fanatic that I was, the, seed start. So I have 9 red okra plants and 5 green. So that's 14 altogether.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm lucky, because I did the red ones are in the front yard, and those are designed to kind of be like in part ornamental. So this goes back to our discussion around like edible gardening and all of that. So I think it's going to be super cool when it grows, but I planted them in a space. And that's another thing I keep my eye on in the front yard, where some of the flowers, bushes that I have are shadowing them out. So I don't think I don't think all 9 of those plants are going to thrive. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's for me, I have 2 plants, which is 100% more than I plant every year, because I always plant 1. But, we're going to can a lot more of it this year. So it's going to be a good thing. And, and with something like okra, though, that's where your walks really come in handy. Your garden checks and your day in the garden. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I don't feel like I really spend all that much time in my garden working. After everything's planted, and I don't consider harvesting working. Yeah. I enjoy that, but and it doesn't take long to do, generally speaking. Now, when the tomatoes come in and the cucumbers, it can be a lot, but weeding, I usually go out there and weed a little bit here and there and stuff like that. And towards the middle of the summer or the end of the summer, I'm like, whatever, I get kind of tired, but now that we're going to do the fall garden this year, we're really going to push for it. Yeah. We're going to have to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm thinking about actually swapping my routine though, doing a garden walk and letting it be a garden walk. Like if there's a plant in trouble, like, a distressed plant, then I'll take action. But the last couple of evenings I've gone out and it's just been more pleasant, if you will. Because the sun again is setting, it's been more pleasant in the evening. So I may move to doing like the tying things up and all of that in the evening. Because right now, or I guess up until the night before last, my evening walk, it's just been that. It's just been like, the cursory glance at everything. And that's what I really want my morning walk to be. Because I do want to spend less time like working in the garden in the morning. Just because, it's freaking hot, man. Like, like you could feel the heat wearing on me during this podcast. Like somehow my house just got hotter than I expected it to be at this hour. And I'm trying to power through it.
Yeah. And it's, it's a safety concern too. So, garden walks and garden checks and time in the garden, all in all said, I'm trying to think, like my grandfather, he had a big garden. He didn't go to his garden. Like it wasn't at his house.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
He didn't go every day.
Yeah. So,
he didn't go. And so the people in I know a lot of people that do community gardens, they don't go every day. So,
yeah. And and the reality is like I've gone on vacation during the summer with a garden. So like this is a part of, this year I'm here, right? Remember last year is the additional, like the doubling the garden space. Last year was the first year that I was working remotely completely. So I was in this space and available, all throughout the day. So because it's something I enjoy so much, it's something that kind of calls me out there, but the reality is, and people have successful gardens and don't spend any time in them every day. It's not required. I think there's some things, obviously, like okra, like we talked about, like good luck if you don't think you're going to need to pick that every day. Yeah. But there are a bunch of vegetables that will do just fine on their own. And you plant your garden based on when you believe you're going to be out there in it too, so.
Right.
So yeah.
No, that's a good point. So I'm just thinking when that okra comes, it's going to be like, because why I have issues with it? Because I don't harvest it soon enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gets all tough. And it's literally like hours difference.
Yeah.
Hours difference. I've never seen a plant grow like that, prolific as hell. So here we go. I think that back in the day when the dinosaurs are around, there was nothing but okra. It just ruled the planet because it grows so prolifically.
It could basically feed like the entire dinosaur community from dinosaur island to dinosaur island. I wonder how filling it is. Like how many okra pods would a dinosaur need to eat? Because what's prolific to you and I could be like just right or like just not enough. So was okra like the main course? It's the big portion on your plate.
Hell yeah.
And then everything else is kind of like a delicacy,
Well, if you think about it, it grows like a tree. Okay. And in all seriousness though, the biggest animals in the world are vegetarians. The biggest animals in the world, and all they do is eat. That's it. They just eat. They don't hunt. Yeah. They don't do anything. They just eat. Yeah. They just walk around and munch. Rah, 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 just constantly eating. So, yeah. So that's the key to that. But it's just such a prolific plant. It's crazy.
Unless you detest okra as a side, put one plant in your garden. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So I wanted to go back to the garden walk. It's a classroom for me too. So I say this often and I'll continue to say it. maybe I'm not going to do a count. Like I was trying to think of like the number of things that I'm growing that are new compared to the things I've grown, for many seasons. If I've not grown it before, I'm interested in watching the progression of it. So I'm looking and saying, oh, okay, that's what's forming there, right? That's what your brand new leaf looks like, right? So, it's there's a school
crazy.
lesson.
You're crazy.
Absolutely, I am. I'm crazy for gardening. Yeah, totally, I do that.
No, I get it, and I like when you go out there and it's like all of a sudden it's like boom, and you're like, damn, what happened? Like you were just a little teeny thing, and it seems like in no time it just kind of popped. It's kind of like when the leaves come out in the spring, and it's like one day there's none, and then all of a sudden it's like fully leafed out. You're like, damn, that was fast.
Yeah, you weren't paying attention.
That's what I like.
I saw every leaf curl and expansion, and
no, you didn't. But
But
that's
again,
okay.
that isn't a requirement of gardening. You can have a successful garden without doing all of that. But again, it's something that I enjoy. Because I enjoy being outside, I balance the idea of feeling like I need to be doing something in the garden versus just being out there. And that's still a challenge for me, to be quite frank. Like, I feel like there's always something you could do in the garden, and somehow I'm always looking for that thing to do. And I'm still coming off of the full-on work mode of it into maintenance and relaxation. I'm like, as of this recording, like in week 1 or going into week 2 of it. So this is an adjusting period for me too. No matter what size my garden is, it's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah,
This will not be a therapy session. This will not be a therapy session.
No, I'm not going to let it happen. It's, it's one of those things. So I'm trying to think, like, what do you think? Like, so in your day in a garden, like, so let's say tomorrow, what project do you have to do?
Tomorrow I don't have any projects. It's been...
Well, that was a dud.
Yeah, right. I have projects to do, but I'm just not going to do them. Like, I have a couple of things I want to do, but it's not worth it in this heat for me. So I'm just putting it off, I guess, until December. But tomorrow I am going to check on my Japanese beetle trap, because it's kind of cool, man. Like, it's kind of icky, but it's kind of cool too. No, man, I'm at water, and I'm starting to slowly convert and, think about watering in a different way, because I am spending a lot. That's basically, I spend the most time doing that. I'm not ready yet, but
yes,
I'm thinking about it.
Yes, you do.
And for years, it's been a part of me connecting with the garden, but I think we've reached the point of diminished returns. We've reached the point where I have too much space to water and to keep watered, where you look up, right? Unless I come out there and just do that, maybe that's what I'll do the next time I have to water. Don't do anything else and just water and see how long that takes me, because I'm folding it all in, and that's where it feels like, this just takes a long time.
It takes you about an hour to water.
Yeah. Now, don't even talk about fertilizing. Good gosh. But I know that it takes you an hour to work, because I've talked to you while you water before. And it does take you, and I mean, you're not like stopping to talk. You are. I can hear the water and everything. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, thanks for that. I won't do that test anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to do that test. You just need, and I mean, you do what you want, but I just feel like when I went to an automated watering, which I kind of always have done, to be honest, is like the first thing I did. I was like, I got to figure out how to do this without me being here. Yeah. And I've always been able to spend that time enjoying
the garden,
garden more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't wear me out as much. And I think that's the thing, the older you get, I'm not that old, but the older you get, you do, things start to wear on you. And, it's like, I don't want to spend my time out there watering. I want to spend my time out there enjoying. Yeah. And I am fully aware, everybody, that the way I water is not the optimum way to water.
Overhead watering.
Fully aware of it. And I'm working on a different method. I'm thinking that I'm going to do a rain barrel. and hook up a pump to it.
Okay.
So, but the problem is like, if you get a 55-gallon rain barrel, that might get through the whole garden, and then I got to wait for it to rain again.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. But I will say this: I have, I dusted off my containers this year, and I put flowers on my porch, and they're killing me.
Oh, is there no shade on the porch at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
What shade there is, the plants that need to go in the shade go in the shade. But what plants need full sun, they're in full sun. So, and the kicker is they're right next to the rain barrel. So that being said, I think that is a candidate for a pump.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? Because
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it's something different.
I was just gonna say, because instead of me out there filling up this little watering can and walking up on the porch and filling it, and it's just so damn hot that I'm like, I could just turn it on and still water and be present, but just enjoy it a little bit more. Not to mention, I could water the other stuff that's right below it that I don't dare water because I'm like, it's so damn hot. I'm not trying to do it. So, it's one of those things. And I know it's like, oh, he's just complaining about the heat. But dude, it gets brutal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just uncomfortable. And it's one of those things that's either like, I need to either be out there. And if I go out there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go weed, I'm going to go water, and I'm going to go pick, and I'm going to go tie up my tomato, then I'm fine being out there. But if it's like, oh shit, I got to go out there and water real quick. And then you go out there and you're sitting out there sweating your ass off, and you're only going to be out there for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And it's, it's like, damn, man.
That's the reason why there's the question about to shower or not before you go out there, right? So I am a firm believer in, you can continue to do it until it doesn't bring you joy anymore, right? So we've talked about how there's a functional part. You're very much a functional gardener, and most people to a big degree are, right? We're growing food, right? And there also, though, is the joy that I get that you laugh at me about when it comes to certain things in the garden. But once it gets to a point where it becomes like you said, like, what's all this work you're doing? Like, when it really feels like work or a hindrance, maybe is the way I would describe it. Like, that's when you need to try something different. And I think that I'm like coming up closely, if not this season, like next season is probably going to be the straw when it comes to the hand watering. I don't want to water overhead just based on like, everything getting so saturated, but I may need to incorporate that into one or both of the beds in between time.
Well, let me ask you a question. I've been overhead watering for 10 years.
And I think that's a part of your problem.
What's wrong though?
Well, you talk about, the powdery mildew often.
I take that back. I did 2 years where I watered with a soaker hose and I still got powdery mildew.
Okay.
Never once put a sprinkler on it. Never for 2 years and still got powdery mildew. So what's it hurting?
Yeah, maybe it's not
hurting.
You know what I mean?
Anything. I do know that it is a waste of water, that it does waste water. I'm very aware of that. And that is the only reason why I want to change my method. The one and only reason is just simply because it is wasteful. But at the same time, it's like I'm trying to figure out. So first of all, basically, I wish I could go back and change the intro because this is like a garden update with garden walking in it.
No, it's not a garden update. You know how many things I have on my garden update list? We haven't even scratched the surface.
But we're probably going to label it that though because we haven't done one in a while. But I haven't, if I expand my garden, then, and I'm not sold on it yet. I'm seriously torn about it, but my watering method might have to change. But if I do soaker hoses, like I did it before and I had them like going out over, and then I'd like cut regular hose and spliced it together so it'd go to the next one. Yeah. And all that stuff.
That's too complex for my garden mind. That's the reason why I've like shied away from it.
Well, see, and I mean, but the thing is once you set it up once, you're good, right? Yeah. So, there's multiple ways to look at it. And I'm like, okay, well, if I do it this time, like I'm going to do the same thing, but then I'm going to bury the hose. So you don't see it and trip over it and all that stuff. So like I said, I don't know what I want to do yet. It's just the way, like if I had a big patch, then that is something else that I'm considering too, is taking 1 foot on the side. So you know how I have like a box?
Mm-hmm.
I have a 4x8 box, and then I have another 4x8 box, and then I have another 4x8 box, then I have another 4x8 box. Well, I'm thinking of taking it and cutting the last foot off of each one, and then building a little mini 2-foot connector.
Okay. Yeah. Wait.
Going through all of them except for one.
No, I'm not tracking, but it's okay. Someone is.
Well, you know how they're like separate boxes? I'm just connecting them.
With the hose.
By 1 foot.
Yeah.
No.
With a piece of wood.
Making another little, with a piece of wood and making like a little expansion for each one. And then I can run that hose through, and I put like a flower there or something.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
So I'm toying with that idea because that eliminates like all that stuff. But then it's like, damn, now I got to take my garden bed apart.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think if I had to do it over again, especially even the front yard, if I had to do it over again, maybe I would have like, I would like to bury the hoses. And maybe this is more of a spring project before, well, we won't even get into that because I'm supposed to be planting in the spring. So we'll just put that on the to be determined list if I'm going to change that method. But getting back around to, the day in the garden, it's definitely a thing I do. I'm watering something every day now, right? And it's something that I am still generally enjoying. But like you said, I mean, like maybe that was a short day. It took me an hour. That's an hour that I could spend doing something else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's the bottom line. Now, it is multitasking, I am doing other things, but I'm sure that I'm doing them slower. Or even I'm watering slower,
what I do
because I'm doing other
for
things.
my 45. Excuse me. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
It's okay.
Do you know what I do for the 45 minutes after I walk through that you don't do? Or, I know you wouldn't do this exact thing, but I take my guitar and I sit out in my guitar and I play my guitar for 45 minutes in my garden every day. And that's me enjoying that space.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're watering. My watering's done and I'm kicking it.
You're just being a nasty co-host, aren't you?
I'm just being nasty. Nasty.
I could have learned to play the guitar during this pandemic instead of watering my garden. No.
You damn right. No, I mean, I was learning before, but I mean, just sitting out, what I'm saying is instead of doing that, if you automate it somehow, then you can be doing something else in your garden. I
understand. I definitely get it. And I'm giving myself a little bit of slack. On one hand,
why?
Because I
don't deserve any slack.
I absolutely can. Well, actually, I had two parts of this. I'm giving myself a little bit of slack because this is the first no, that's not true. This is the second full season where I've had both of these garden areas. Now, girl, you should have thought of this was I knew I was going to have these garden areas. You know what I'm saying? Like I've looked into this and researched this enough to know that this would increase my workload, if you will, which it has. I think it could also just be like the heat is talking to me quite literally. It's hard to get out in the morning before it gets uncomfortable. And to think that I'm kind of standing in one place holding a hose. Like by the time I get, because I normally start in the front yard with watering, by the time I get in the backyard, I'm literally sitting on my milk crate watering.
Yeah.
That is what it is, And it's cool to be able to sit and chill, but by then I'm ready to go inside and have another cup of coffee in the cool air, before I maybe head back outside just to sit and chill. So I want that 45-minute guitar time, man. That's what I want.
That's I mean, that's a lot though. That's exhausting. I mean, it makes me tired thinking about it.
Yeah. Or I can just
happy,
maybe I'll talk to you every 45 minutes when I'm for those 45 minutes because we could feel.
If you talk to me, I'm gonna be like, Batavia, you need to be done. You need to be done.
1 to 2 inches a week. That's all it needs. Yeah.
Yeah, I water every other day. Every other day. So and you're going out there every day, right?
Yeah, primarily because of the pots. I'm not watering the entire the garden beds every day, but the containers and the pots, So yeah, there's some that I have that are like, I don't know, 6 inches or something, and they're the cutest little thing. It's very decorative, and I love them. But every year, this is the 3rd or 4th year I've planted in them. Every year I say, damn it. You know, like someone's going to have to come to my house and take them away from me though. And I can't, you know, I can't give them away because I'm not built that way. And they're the cutest thing. I'll show you a picture of them. But they dry out every single day. Every single day.
That's how mine are.
So,
and it's pissing me off. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm done with it.
You.
I'm not doing it again. Yeah. I'm not doing any more teeny pots.
But I think one of the things, though, we can take away from the day in the garden, if you kind of look at it, is like this is also a time in garden walks, a time where you can figure out what adjustments you need to make. What do you want to do versus not want to do? You know what I'm saying? So even if I wasn't spending an hour watering every couple of days, right? I still would probably need to look into, you know, automating the watering. And this is just getting me there sooner, you know. You hear me trying to talk myself into there's value in me wasting 45 more minutes every day.
Well, I mean, are you enjoying it? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, still.
Okay, then don't change it.
The last 15 minutes, it's the reverse of the first 45 minutes, I'm good with it. The last 15 minutes, I'm like, come on, God, where are you with the rain, you know?
Then why don't you do this? Why don't you water the front one day, the back another day?
I have pots everywhere. But yeah, remember.
No, I mean, I'm saying like your main gardens. But
that's what I'm saying. I'm not watering the main gardens every day. Because, I mean, again, it's not that hot here where I need to water it every day. But so this is actually do I consider a different design next year? I think it's just a volume issue, though. Because it's not like I live on acres or anything. The garden is a hop skipping away from the front yard and the backyard. It's just I'm transitioning. Remember, I'm a whole different gardener when I'm in the front yard because there's a lot more conversation, passersby, you know. I'm still so shocked by how great everything's turning out. And the backyard is much more functional, you know. So it's kind of like, all right, I'm wrapping up for the morning. And it's just that whole thing. And again, I'm only like 2 weeks into this new part of it. So I'm giving myself a break. Didn't I give myself a break? Like 10 minutes ago? You didn't let me? I'm taking it now. Taking that break. It's all good.
I told you can't have a break.
It's all good. Well, you've questioned secretly my watering methods from the very beginning. Or openly.
No.
Yeah, you have.
You've questioned mine.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
No, I haven't really. No, it's all good.
You've poo-pooed mine. Yeah. But look, seriously, and I mean, I think the trick is don't overwater. You know what I mean? Like, that's the trick, is just don't overwater your garden.
Yeah.
You know, be aware of what you're doing. You know, it's like, I have it figured out, like when my sprinkler runs, how long it's running for. You know, and I know when people are listening to this, they're like, he overhead waters. Everybody says don't. But, dude, when it rains, how does the water get there?
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah, you've said that in particular to me before. Yeah.
So before we had soaker hoses and everything else, and plants grew, how do they grow? How do they get watered?
I'm doing my my little fingers, which are raindrops.
Yep. So I mean, if you think about it that way, then
yeah, you're onto something. Gosh, you just invented a new method to watering. Look at that.
No, I reintroduced a new method.
It's the remix. Yeah.
I'd be curious though too. This is the episode where I ask people to do something, but let us know how you water.
Yeah.
You know, what are your methods that you use? I'm really curious about what different people do. You know, do you hand water, or I mean, you don't have to do it. You just say overhead or underneath, or you know, whatever. But
you could say Batavia's method, Ben's method, something different.
Yeah. You could say the right method or the bad method, and then we'll let you decide which way it is. You have the power.
You know how I'm going to interpret all of them.
Yeah.
But no, I think even beyond watering, so we've narrowed down that's where I'm spending quite a bit of time, because luckily and fortunately, I generally, if I stay on my garden, I don't have a lot of trouble with weeds. Now I've had years where I've come to the garden area pretty late. And yeah, again, it's been a jungle out there. But these last handful of years, I've done a pretty good job. Other than, kind of the garden, there's some weeding that I do for aesthetics, like on the sides of the house or whatever. But yeah, I feel like I don't spend really much time at all. I pull a weed here or there. My flower bed, at this point, I just don't even want to crawl in there to get to it. So if a blade of grass is growing up in it, just let it be. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to think about, for me, 3 years ago, my house was in the straight up forest.
Oh, I didn't realize this.
Yeah, my house is only, my property is only 3 years old.
Okay.
So 3 years ago, it was straight up forest.
Yeah.
And then they carved us out and we're surrounded. So it's like this uphill battle. And that's why I'm not freaking out about it. Cause I'm like, yeah, of course it's going to take time. It's like, we're not supposed to be in this spot. So
intruder.
Exactly. And so as we go forward, that's where I'm going through and I'm trying to weed constantly, a little bit here, a little bit there, and just stay on top of it. And so next year, the plan is with other kinds of plants and stuff like that, we can fill up those spaces and shade out all that stuff. And so we're going to do a pretty dense planting next year in some of these spots because we're really I'm like, okay, I've got this little bed here that it's kind of doing its thing. And then I've got this other spot here and it's like an extension of the garden. So we're going to go ahead and just move forward with it. And then there's oh, okay, well then there's this other, damn it, my alarm's going off. Hold on.
Pick up your kid that's not at the school bus.
Yeah, exactly. You would think I would turn it off.
No, it's all good. So for the watering, I think we've beat that to death. And Ben's going to come back and talk more about watering. But for me, I think the focus really has to be...
Okay, it will never come on again.
I was filling the space. I was just saying we talked to death watering. I want to move on. But I think that when it comes to the day that you spend in the garden, while there is some real legitimate work to do, I think you really want to make sure that you're finding a way to enjoy that time you're spending there. Because, after growing food, it should be... If it's going to mean something else to you, which it doesn't have to, but if it is, you want it to be, peace, joy, not dread. So
well, that's exactly why we went to flowers. Because we wanted to find that extra, reason to be out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's actually...
And I mean, as much as... you can sit there and look at vegetables. It's like, okay.
So one of the things I make sure I do, there's some flowers, again, that I really like. So I'm okay with spending the time deadheading. But there are other flowers that I'm pretty particular about. And I'll do a search to make sure that they aren't high maintenance in that sense, because it's important. I'm missing something when I don't have color in the garden. And I'm speaking broadly when I say the garden, like on my property. And flowers do that for me. We're not going to get into what flowers really do for me, but flowers do that for me.
No, we shouldn't. It might be kind of weird.
Yeah. And so it's important for me to have those things planted, and that requires a little bit more work and upkeep for me, but it's worth it. This morning, I think we were talking, and I was just like, I have a beautiful arrangement that I put together for did I plant it all up in there? I'm trying to think. I think I filled that. I do a thing with containers where sometimes I don't fill the entire container with dirt. I'll just even put another cover pot, put a pot inside of a pot. Because some of them are very decorative and it's just a lot of money. But I think I did fill that entirely with dirt. But anyway, I looked at it and said, "You're too pretty, my dear, to be over here in this corner." And I was trying to figure out where could I show this thing off in my own garden, right? Then I got closer to the house and I'm like, I could see it off in the distance and it's perfect. But anyway, it really kind of ties into finding the things that bring you joy that you like and amplifying those and making tweaks as you can to the things that don't. You don't like weeding, so you guys did some extra mulching this year to try to combat some of that. right? Did it eliminate it? No, but you're spending less time weeding, right? You know, in 6 years, maybe I won't enjoy watering by hand and I'll move on to an automated system with watering, you know. There you have it.
Well, we're definitely spending a lot less time weeding this year, and it's been much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's taken the load off completely.
Yeah, it's good.
Now, that being said, mulching I don't think is necessary. I do know that all the benefits that you read about it, from what I can tell, because remember, I've never really mulched, is basically true. You know, the water is retained more. The soil is cooler. And the weeding is less. So that is a good thing. Now, that being said, the choice that I made for the wood chips, I don't know. Yeah, you know, but I feel like it lays down such a thick mat that the light can't get through that it's actually a good thing. But mixing it in to get it, you know, if I want to add to, like, so this year, like, I really need to add to my garden. I need to add manure into it and stuff, compost. It's going to be a pain. Yeah. But I think I'm cool with it. And I'm going to put straight up, like, chicken manure in it in the wintertime and just let it sit and cook all winter. So
one of the things that it does for me, mulching in the spring, though, is it beats back those weeds that grow before I get out to plant my garden. You know, so it's a benefit. Yeah. But I'm going to have that same trouble when it comes to amending my garden beds, which all of them besides one is covered with, or two are covered with wood chips. And that's just because I'm starting some things new. And I've learned my lesson, you know, with the roly-polies. And I want to wait until the veggies are a bit more mature before I cover it. But by the end of the season, the bed's going to be covered with wood chips as well. So, I mean, again, it's...
So do you add every year?
Wood chips, or this is like only my third or fourth year using wood chips for mulch, and the answer is yes.
Yeah, you add every year. See, I'm not going to add next year. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work with it. You know what I'm saying? And I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of feed into it a little bit, like move a little bit, put it in there, and then kind of get my hands underneath there and really work it, you know, stick it in there and just move it
around. Yeah, I hear you. Rocking and rolling. Yeah.
You know, I feel like over time it'll all work itself out.
Yeah. It's not something that I'm stressed about. I'll deal with it when I deal with it. You know, I do like, you know, the idea and doing it, prepping that bed before the garden season's up. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it'll be fine. That'll be a different day in the garden when that comes.
Exactly. And there's different things to do in different days. So, you know, different phases throughout the year. So, you know, everybody knows spring, so we won't even talk about spring. But summertime, you know, I think it's a lot of weeding, a lot of, you know, pest controls, stuff like that. And then fall comes around, and then you have the same thing basically as spring, where you're kind of getting started, getting going. But then in the middle of fall, you kind of have you're back to your summer mode. You know what I mean? And then as it gets colder and it goes to sleep, like if you're lucky enough and you live in an area like I do, where a lot of things will continue, it can go either way. They can continue to grow or they can die. But if they do, well, your pests aren't going to be as bad, and your weeds. I take that back. My weeds were really bad last winter. And the thing is, I'm stupid. I just sat there and like watched them go like, oh, get them in the spring. Here we go. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh shit, they're really, really bad.
Back
you
with
know,
the
these
vengeance,
things are gangster. So it's you know, each season is different.
Yeah. So tell me, in your like the lowest of low key garden days, right? Like, what's the average time you spend, you know, during that week?
Working
in the garden. Not
working?
Yeah, not playing your guitar or anything, you know, but
not relaxing or enjoying it, just working in it. In all honesty, right now, I probably work in my garden maybe 2 hours a week. That's it. But you have to remember,
maybe 20 minutes a day if you broke it down.
Maybe. But you have to remember, in the spring, there was 4 or 5 hours a day getting it ready. So there's a big difference there. And in the wintertime, because I was doing the little makeover deal and everything, I think that was a big difference.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think September for me is probably going to be a slower month. That's been my experience before. Again, there's more to grow and harvest now, but and once you get to that point, I'm going to say if I fold in the containers, maybe 15 minutes a day, so whatever that is. And that could be a couple of minutes in the morning and a couple of minutes in the evening. And again, that's the low, so that's the ask. There could be times between now and then that I still spend an hour a day, depending on the day, so clearly water days, equal an hour, but.
But what's the key takeaway here?
For me, and I think I've said it, and I want to continue to say it. The key takeaway for me is do what works for you until it doesn't work for you. Yeah,
I think for me, and you totally missed the mark of what I was trying to get you to do.
That's fine.
So, it's having a garden as a whole doesn't really take that much extra time out of your hands.
It doesn't have to.
And it doesn't have to. And I think we're actually, some of the gardeners that I follow that are new this year, I think I'm really starting to see that too, because they're not, and they're like in it. They're like, I'm going to grow some damn food, but they're not constantly out there working or anything like that. I think that they're out there kind of watching and waiting for something to pick and stuff like that. But I can tell that some of them, and it's great that they're not out there like constantly, but then there's those times when you get those Japanese beetles or when I had those grasshoppers where it's like, okay, I got to go out in the morning. I might even go out in the afternoon and then go out in the evening, because you will get on top of them that way. And then there are those days, but it takes me 5 minutes. I look, I'm saying, okay, there's nothing there, and I walk away. There's no point. But then when there's there, sometimes I'm chasing them around the garden. I'm like, you little bastard, you are not getting away. Because when they're little, the grasshopper's little, they can't fly.
Oh, okay.
They can only jump. Yeah. So that's why you got to get them,
Yeah.
Get it while the getting's good.
I like your takeaway. Let me re-answer. Ask me again. No, I'm not going to re-answer.
No take backs. No take backs. But I think it's important too, because, the common misconception is it takes so long.
Yeah.
It takes so long to work in a garden. And that's just, I don't see that as the case.
Well, I think that part of the things that you've asked me about when it comes to my garden, and I'm hoping that came across, the time I'm spending, it's I choose to race. Now it's a Seinfeld reference. I choose to spend that time, right? There are a bunch of things that I could do to cut back the time that I spend in the garden, and I choose to spend my time, especially at this time, this point in the year, this point with what's going on in the society. It's kind of like, well, but I also spent 7 hours lounging on my, back deck this past Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And it's nice to be able to look out at what, I've been growing. So it's all good. I don't have any dead flowers. So all that watering is worked out.
But in the spring, there was definitely some days where I was spending 8 hours a day.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Not many, but there was a couple 8-hour days out there where I was like, okay. And that was my own doing, though.
Yeah.
That's because I was like, I'm going to go get mulch. I'm going to put mulch in. Okay, now I'm going to put edgers down. Okay, now I want to build this path. Okay, now I want to film this video. And I want to film this video and that video. And what I did is I spread it out, and I did a whole bunch of stuff this year. I changed a lot of things, and some things aren't doing as well. Like my shade garden needs a bad weeding. Bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of do what we've been doing, is we're going to weed it. And then next year we're going to plant tighter and then mulch around it. And then hopefully that will help.
Yeah.
But, until that time comes, we're just trying to stay on top of it. So, some things work, some things don't. And don't be discouraged about it. Just try and use those times. And, it's like, oh, yeah, I sit around 8 hours a day lounging on my back deck. It's like, because you earned that 8 hours.
Yeah.
And you and I both know you're not lounging for 8 hours on the deck.
No, I totally was. I slept for an hour and a half. Yeah, man, it was a good time. It was very.
So you got 6.5 more hours to go.
and I chilled, man. I was very intentional. Sunday was supposed to be the day where I did nothing. I was very intentional.
Oh, okay. So you took a day.
I absolutely took a day off of like everything, so that was very much a part of my plan. And at some point it was like, all right, I went in because the sun found me. Most times that area is pretty, shade-y.
Right.
And so yeah, that was it. But I mean, I think that if I have to change anything about going into next season that I know now, which is a little bit off topic, but to change what my days are like in the garden, I'm going to do a better job at what I really need to do between winter and spring. Meaning, like, I'm looking back and trying to figure out, what did I spend so much time doing this spring? Like, there wasn't a huge expansion year. I added one bed. Like, I'm trying to go back, like, what took me so long to get to the point of go for planting? Like, I was spending hours and hours, like you're talking about, in the garden too. Like, what in the hell was I doing? So I'm going to be more deliberate in, like, getting to the start line.
Well, and for you, like, winter is different because it freezes over completely.
Yeah.
So your work really needs to go into the fall. And you can do your
I thought
your
I did that last year, but clearly it felt like this year.
You weren't on the podcast yet, so you didn't.
Well, obviously not. I didn't even know what that meant last year. I do think that there was some general, like, garden cleanup that I didn't do. Like, I prepped half of the beds. Remember, I said I prepped the front yard beds, didn't prep the backyard beds. And then I didn't do cleanup, meaning like dumping pots that I wanted to dump, picking up all the buckets, moving the milk crates. Like, by the time that it started to get cold, I was tapping out. So I think really getting the garden ready to be plant ready or planting ready for next spring is going to be my task for this fall.
Yeah, I last year I remember I just kind of was like, I'm done. I'm done. It wore me out. Like, I was fighting these grasshoppers and Japanese beetles, and I harvested like 5 pounds of green beans a day. And it was just, it was just like constant. And then by the time I was just like, I'm done. And I literally just was like, I walked away. Yeah. And then when I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this YouTube thing. This is a good platform for me. Like, I got it. And then I was like, I'm going to do a cleanup. And I remember I was filming that episode, the cleanup episode. And I looked at it and I was like, shit, you sorry bastard. You set yourself up for so much work. And I just spent like the whole day just like picking up trash and stuff like that. And I mean, we have windstorms and stuff like that come through, but in the wintertime, you don't stay on top of it. And I can't do that. I got to get out there and stay on top of it. And I got to go out there and pull a weed. You know what I mean? Because we'll go and it won't even freeze here. It'll be cold, but it won't necessarily freeze.
Or cover the bed. I need to stay on. I've weeded.
Yeah, I'm not going to cover the bed. But
I've weeded the bed number 13 like 3 different times this season. And it's not even half planted. So that's an example of like, although the weather is still chilly, we're still in the 30-degree, Fahrenheit range. But you know how, some of these weeds will come back and say, I'm okay with it being cold. Let me hang out for a while.
Dude, mine love it. So, you saw my garden. I mean, you watched those videos. Yeah. There was a lot of like vibrant green.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing. And so that basically leads to work. Now, this year I won't have as much trouble because, again, I'm going to leave those beds covered. When I say covered, I mean like covered with wood chips, so that's going to gain something. So the one thing I didn't do going into coming from 2019 going into 2020, I didn't organize, this is a whole different episode now. I didn't organize my garage where I store most of my things coming out of the end of last season. So that's another reason why the backyard was a bit of a mess and the garage was a bit of a mess. So it took me a while to like even go through figuring out the shit that I had in there. And that is a lot because it's that weird period of it's sometimes too hot to get in there to try to do it. And then by the time it gets cool enough, again, I'm almost at that point of tapping out, so we'll figure it out. I think those are 2 things that I'm promising myself.
Well, and one of the things too is you accumulated a lot of shit when you garden. Yeah.
Well, generally I'm a shit accumulator, so that's it.
It's not you though. It's not just you. It's like you get this and that, and oh, I'm going to save this and repurpose that and all that. And I've really been trying to be like, you know, it's like I save all the plastic pots when I buy stuff. And I'm like, okay, I don't need the big ones. Now the seedling trays and stuff, like, yeah, I'll save those. But the big ones, like, you got to part with them, man. You know, where it's like, oh, I got this little box, I can use that. It's like, no, you got to part with it. You got to get rid of it. Just let go of the damn thing. And you know I'm talking to you out there because we're all the same way.
Absolutely.
Every one of us. If you're listening to this podcast, you have definitely done this. And I'm trying to be more of a minimalistic gardener. You know, as much as I can, just be like, I don't need that much. I'm good. I got this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're cool. So it's tough, man. But that's been one thing I've been working on. So, but guess what? We've been talking about this a long time, and it's time for the recipe of the day, and it's going to be fruit. You liked that hard transition, didn't you?
That was like a sharp right turn, right? Like
It was. But I looked at it and I was like, oh, we've been going for a minute. All right. So this is coming out in August-ish. So apple season's coming. It's not here. You got time. Don't freak out, everybody. Okay. But I got to give you this recipe so I make sure that you have it for when they're here. You take your apples and you're going to dice them. Okay. And you're going to dice them about 1 inch to 1/2 inch. And you're going to get a pan and you're going to preheat your pan to, I cook everything on medium high. I cook no less, no more. So you can just take it or leave it, adjust it as needed. Put your apples in there and then get, some blueberries maybe, or some other kind of berry. I like blueberries personally, and throw those in the pan and cook them down. And I just add a little bit of water and I cook them down. And then I put cinnamon in it. Nice layer of cinnamon. Okay. I'm personally allergic to nutmeg.
Okay.
So like when we make pumpkin pies and stuff like that, we don't use that. We use a little bit of ginger instead. Same taste. Same taste. Put that in there and just cook it down. It'll get nice and mushy, but you don't want it to be like the consistency of, let's say, like a pudding or something like that. You know, you want it to be nice and soft, and then it'll be nice and brown and caramelized from the cinnamon and the blueberries all mixed together. And then you're going to take your oatmeal.
I knew it! I was hoping. Look, I'm squeezing my fingers together. I was hoping that this is where this was going. Okay, sorry. I'm like, this is like some comics routine and the crowd is yelling out the punchline. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So then you're going to take your oatmeal, but you're not going to cook your oatmeal. Don't cook it. I challenge you not to cook your oatmeal. So you put your oatmeal in your bowl, 1/2 cup of oatmeal, full cup, whatever you want to do. I don't care. Your choice. And it's usually about 1 apple per person is what I do. Because, you know, I tend to like my plates to be mostly fruits or vegetables, in my case, fruit. And then you're going to take milk of your choosing. I use almond milk. No problems there. And then you're going to put the almond milk in there. Okay. Now, you can use quick oats if you want it to be more like of a creamy consistency, if that's what you like. Or if you don't have quick oats, you have old-fashioned oats, you can just quickly grind up your oats, like half of the oats, and mix them, and then you have quick oats. Easy fix. But you put in your milk, little pinch of salt, and a splash of vanilla. Mix it up, and you got breakfast. I eat my oatmeal cold. I don't cook it. So I challenge you to eat cold oatmeal.
So this is like, you're not letting it sit though, because I really enjoy,
No, it's not overnight oatmeal.
Yeah, I'm actually about to transition to overnight oatmeal now.
We do that a lot. Yeah. And it's, when you do when you either grind up your oats or you make a, quick oats, it pretty much turns soft right away. But it's the texture of the oatmeal with the softness of everything else that's really good. So, And if you don't have something like blueberries, you can use grapes or raisins. Excuse me. Don't use grapes. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Wow.
We've used pears before, but all that stuff. So
any fruit with a
and
seed.
that is, any fruit with a seed. Correct. And if you want it to be sweeter, for some reason, you could use like half a banana to give it like that natural sugar.
Yeah.
Or I use stevia in it, but I don't really make it any sweeter generally. And then eat it up. So simple, super simple. One pan, one bowl. That's it. 5 minutes to make it, and then you're good.
I don't have apples or blueberries.
Yeah, we've been crushing the blueberries lately, and I know that it's not apple season yet, and everybody's like, "What the hell? You said you don't like apples," and you're right. I get tired of eating them, but I do get excited about that recipe because it's really good.
It's a really yummy way it sounds like to eat them, though.
Yeah, and it's kind of who says that you have to eat cinnamon in the fall?
I don't.
Cut it out.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Get it out of here.
I don't say that, but yeah,
I do. I do. So yeah, well, it's delish.
Thank you for building on the fruit recipes.
Oh, I'm going strong, baby. I got it. I got this. I didn't
doubt you, but I didn't believe in you either.
I don't believe in myself, honestly. Well, you know what the problem is fruit is enjoyable raw.
Yeah.
So it's like, eat a mango.
Yeah.
You're
there
done.
It is. Boom. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not. So it is hard to cook with fruit for me, and I don't bake. So that's the other problem is I don't bake.
Yeah.
I married a baker.
Good on you.
So I don't have to bake.
On you. Yeah.
So yeah. Smart move. So, but yeah, it's easy recipe. Get ready for fall, even though it's not here, but still enjoy the flavors. And the beauty of it is it takes so little time to make it that you can go out and eat it while you walk in your garden.
There it is.
Tied it all together.
Recipe mic drop.
Like a bow. Yeah. Just like a little bow in it. So are you going to shorten up your garden walks? Have you decided yet?
I haven't decided yet. I have decided I am going to I'm coddling a lot. You've heard it. You've heard it in this episode. You've heard it, when we talk offline. And I think I'm ready to kind of pull back a little bit. Like, really, the pots are the only things that I need to be looking at. And we're talking about like maybe 4 or 5 pots that I need to look at daily and add some water to. And if I really wanted to, I could, make some adjustments to make that a little bit easier. But I think that I need to like do a hard transition to just chilling, before it becomes overwhelming,
Yeah. You and I are two totally different gardeners.
Absolutely.
You are a very coddling gardener. And I'm a very hands-off gardener.
You are, and I am.
I'm very much so like, it's going to make it, make sure there's no problems, and I'm going to let it grow, and, that's about it.
Yeah, because all of this, and it doesn't really impact my success. But in my mind, it's like I'm giving it my all. Now, September is a different version of, Batavia and gardening, so, because it takes a lot out of you to do what I'm talking about doing here, right? Just mentally, it's on my mind a lot. And again, I love it. But, there's too much of a good thing, as the saying goes. So
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But let us know, let us know what you guys do. Let us know how much time if you do your morning walks or if you do it combine it all, how you water. I really want to know how people water.
Yeah.
If anything else, let us know how you water. That'd be pretty cool to see, to hear, so, otherwise that's all I got on garden walking.
Yeah.
A day in the garden.
Absolutely. It can be as long or short as you want it to be.
You know what my advice is?
What's that?
Make it short and enjoy your space.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet and enjoy. Just sit back and look.
And for me, I say bring a blanket out there and camp out. Or something close to that.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've slept in my garden before.
I haven't, but
Why not?
that's a line I'm not willing to cross. I mean, I clearly slept
Really?
in my backyard, but not for a night or anything.
Yeah.
No, but that's another story.
Yeah, we've camped out a lot and stuff like that, so we do that a lot.
Yeah.
But all right, peeps,
That's it.
keep it real. Hey, do me a favor. Don't wear your mask in your car alone. You're not going to catch the coronavirus by yourself.
I mean, I haven't said this, but I mean, I'm okay with you wearing it if you want to.
I'm not. I like it because I get to laugh.
You're such a, you know what, about that.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, wear a mask and keep everybody safe. We need to do our part and enjoy your gardens. Stay cool, and check us out on our usual locations. If you haven't subscribed to us, what are you waiting for? And if you haven't shared us, what are you waiting for? Let's get some people going. Let's get more people listening so we can help people grow better, more, learn to grow, and grow for change.
We want to hear from you. Until then,
That's right.
see ya.
Thank you for listening to us today. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Backyard Gardens Pod, and we share gardening tips and clips from the show. And we would love to see your gardens and share them with everybody. So if you want to join us and you want to share your gardens, feel free to use the hashtag BYG Podcast. And if you want to see us on video, you can find us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we have the full show and clips and all the recipes broken down for you. And until next time, learn to grow and grow for change, and we're going to call it a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.